I think about How to Train Your Dragon constantly. It's my Roman Empire, I think. I think I've seen this movie so many times I can likely recite it from memory, but I'm not gonna try because I feel like that would be embarrassing. Hi, I'm Allison. Thanks for clicking. I want to say welcome back, but this is my first video, so welcome. I honestly think that How to Train Your Dragon is one of the best animated films ever made. And to say that feels like a hot take. I'm only going to be talking about the first film today because I feel like the second and third are great, but they're not as great as the first one in terms of disability. Because I really think it's important to address representation, and especially in widespread popular media, especially children's content. It's just so well done in its storytelling that I think there was a lot of care that went into it, which I love. I love when artists and creators put time and work into their movies and their music, their books, whatever. It's amazing. I feel like to explain the plot of How to Train Your Dragon makes it seem more ridiculous than it actually is. Basically, dude finds a dragon, becomes friends with the dragon, some conflict ensues, and they save the village and live happily ever after. Deals with this young person who is a Viking, who's caught up with the social expectations of masculine and violent societies, until one day he captures a dragon to prove himself. He does this because he's so desperate to fit in, he's willing to do anything. Only to realize society's expectations are not what he is. And he's horrified by his own desire to kill. And so he frees the dragon that he captures, understanding that it's an innocent creature. And they eventually form a bond, so strong that it not only reshapes his core being and his beliefs, but also his immediate social relationships and the entire structure of his society. It's incredible. It's so cool. I think when you word it like this, a story about a marginalized person on the outskirts of society breaking free from social norms and combating them with empathy as a way to change the world isn't so ridiculous. And the movie might be overly heteronormative with the relationship between Hiccup and Astrid, and it's barely passes the Bechdel test, which is the test to see if there are two women who talk to each other who have names about something other than a man. But I think the story of Hiccup and Toothless is so important because their relationship shows that empathy and open-mindedness are really important to a healthy society, and that sometimes we have more in common with others than we think. And I want to talk about this movie in the context of disability. According to the World Health Organization, disability is part of being human, and about 16% of the global population have a disability, which is about 1.3 billion people. World Health Organization goes on to define disability as a mental or physical condition, such as cerebral palsy or ADHD, and how it interacts with one's personal and environmental factors. So these could be things like negative attitudes towards disabled people, inaccessible public spaces, or limited social support, because society doesn't accommodate them. And I think what's important is to note whose emphasis on ableist practices, because it's not about the person, but it's really about systemic barriers that keep people from participating in society. And there's nothing wrong with having a disability. It does not make you less than, and it's not something to be ashamed of. And so when we talk about How to Train Your Dragon, by the end of the movie, both Hiccup and Toothless are disabled characters who lose part of their limbs and become amputees, who bond over their loss of body parts and use of prosthetics, but they also bond over their shared worldview of empathy. And so DreamWorks has created a protagonist, or even two protagonists, if you want to think about it like that, who break away from the evil or super crip stereotype in media that often reduces physically disabled persons to villains. Also injects disability into the overarching story in a way that feels natural and relevant. They put goodness and disability into the same body as a way to normalize it. Toothless doesn't hold resentment towards Hiccup for being the reason his tail fin is gone. He shows him mercy in their first meeting when Hiccup refuses to perpetuate the violent norms of killing dragons, even though these are the norms he's been socialized with. Both characters are heroic and complex beings, and they endure the full range of human emotions and experiences, even though, yes, one of them is a dragon. And I think this kind of representation is refreshing. And it's important. Most characters with disabilities are portrayed as tragic, depressed, evil, or even as comedic punching bags. They are also few and far between, but in this case, Hiccup and Toothless are capable of being happy and successful, often because of their disabilities. Toothless enjoys being Hiccup's best friend, and their relationship as rider and dragon are really the key point of the movie. And DreamWorks manages to do this without tokenizing or romanticizing the disability. And this representation brings us back to empathy. Not only is there empathy between this boy and his dragon, but the story itself creates empathy in the audiences for these disabled characters. But they don't infantilize them or pity them. They are powerful, they are independent, and they rely on each other. They make sure to be partners above all else. And this brings me to community, solidarity, and acceptance. The most touching scene in the whole movie is the ending, where Hiccup is ready to take his first steps with his new prosthetic leg. And fresh from the fire, he is ready to take on the world, which is amazing. And I can't explain it better than Stevie Page Martin, who talks about the importance of this scene in the context of disability and solidarity. The scene demonstrates positive portrayal of disability. When Hiccup stumbles, he has a friend to pick him up and help him keep going, one who understands the adjustment process of being fitted with the prosthetic. I believe that Hiccup and Toothless relationship is honestly the best part of the film, and Martin is highlighting the necessity of community, where Toothless shows it's okay to ask for help while giving Hiccup room to retain his autonomy. They are bonded over similar experiences, but still value each other for their many skills and strengths. And unlike our society, characters in this village, like Hiccup and even Gobber, his mentor, are welcomed without hesitancy, and their needs are met with mobility aids without question. And they're not thought of as lesser Vikings because they're missing feet, legs, or hands. In fact, Gobber is a teacher. He is a person of power that shapes the minds of youth. Similarly, Hiccup in the second and third film goes on to be a strong leader for his community as son of the chief, and he takes an equally important role. They are both accepted as they are and valued for their unique perspectives and able to perform all the tasks of their fellow Vikings, although sometimes in different ways. See Gobber drinking beer with a wooden goblet attached to his wrist. Iconic. And so you have this movie that is both about overcoming prejudice and encouraging accessibility at the same time. And I think it's important not to just criticize what's wrong with the world, but have something good that you want to replace it with, as Hiccup does. He doesn't want to stop merely killing the dragons, but he wants to befriend them and integrate them into their lives, and form this new coalition. Disability is one pillar of this film, but is not the only pillar. How to Train Your Dragon is an intricate commentary on social change and the power that individuals hold, especially those who are marginalized or outcast from society. Representation is important, community is important, and ensuring people can exist freely and confidently exactly as they are is important. I, like Hiccup, am open to seeing the world in a different way if the circumstances call for it, either as a call-in or call-out. I think society ought to make room for us, instead of expecting us to shrink down into boxes no human person or dragon could ever fit into. Let me know about your thoughts on How to Train Your Dragon's representation of disability in the comments. What did you like? What would you change? I'd love to read them. I'm all about discussion. I've also included some links in the description to some of the different think pieces on disability, as well as some disabled influencers that you can check out and follow. If you're interested in learning more about what it's like to live with disabilities, or just general knowledge and information. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.